crafting friends, it's Sue and I'm back with another totally experimental project, and this is something I haven't tried before. I have experimented with it a little bit, however, and I'll show you that in a second. This is a moleskin book that I've had for quite some time, and I have several black journal type books like this laying around my house. And I keep forgetting I have them, so I keep going out and buying new ones. And of course, they don't get used because I put them away or whatever. This book I tried to find the other day and wanted to use it for a specific purpose and then wasn't sure which one it was. So rather than trying to feed through all the black similar ones, I wanted to have something that as soon as I picked it up, I would say, yes, that book is for whatever. And to be honest with you, I already forgot what I even intended this for. So, but I still have the project in mind, so I figured I would go ahead and do it anyway. Why not, right? And why not have a little fun with it and kind of share the results with all of you in case you ever want to do something like this. I haven't seen any specific videos on doing this. Quite frankly, I didn't look for any because I didn't want to kind of ruin my own experimental process. So we're just going to start off on this together. So I have taken this book, and now that I've touched it all over, I'm going to clean it again because I don't want a bunch of oily fingerprints on it. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. So I want to decorate the cover so that it's something other than black. And I have nothing against a good black journal, trust me. Like I said, I have tons of them. It's my go-to. But I want to make it a little bit brighter, a little bit easier to spot. So initially my thought, of course, was to go to resin. And I did experiment with resin. I did not experiment with epoxy, but I did experiment with UV resin. And I experimented with a few different techniques and things that I thought might work. And the UV resin peels right off, no questions asked. So even if I put the UV resin directly on this cover, it's gone. It'll peel right off. It doesn't peel right off right away. It sticks. But I could definitely see that sometime in the future it would be gone. Now I could seal it with something. That kind of defeats the purpose of putting any resin on it. And I only experimented with UV because I didn't want to try mixing up a small portion of regular epoxy resin just to put it on there to see whether it stuck. I figured I'd start with UV. If it didn't stick, chances were pretty good that the epoxy resin wouldn't stick. Total note here, I have no intent, nothing to base on whether the epoxy resin would or would not stick. So don't take this video as a means of saying, no, you cannot do this with epoxy resin. I haven't tried it, but I didn't want to try it. So the UV resin failed. I wanted to go to something else. So many trials and tribulations later, I came up with something that I think will work. And the reason that I need something specifically to work is that I want to add something to this cover besides just whatever the bottom coat is going to be. And what I want to add is a cute little stamp. And I may or may not have shown you these stamps before, but these are stamps from Stampers Anonymous, the Jim Holtz collection, whichever it is. I'm so sorry for the people that know this. Tim Holtz. It is Tim Holtz. That's what I thought. Tim Holtz collection, stamps and stencils. And this one in particular, if you can see it, is a bunch of really cool cats and then a kind of stencil piece right here. So with that being said, I'll show you kind of what these look like. So I did experiment with the stamps already a little bit. So there's this cute kind of, and I'm sorry, I tested this paper a while ago and it's gotten dirty since then. But this kind of cute, like sleepy, grumpy looking cat, this crazy, like, I feel like I look like this every day kind of cat. And then there is one other one where he's just kind of laying on his belly, sort of sleeping. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of really neat sayings. There's a ball of yarn, a fishbone, a milk bottle, and I for the little accessory things, I think that's it. And then there's also the stencil over here, which looks like that. And I might experiment with the stencil, but I'm going to have to do that on white paper before I try to do it on the book. But that's what I wanted to do. And initially my intention was to stamp directly onto whatever the surface is I'm going to put on the book. And I still may try that. Haven't totally made up my mind yet. I may experiment with that a little bit before I do it. But I think what I want to do is put this cat right on the top of this book. I want to print out or stamp some of these little guys and put them around. And I might put some of the sayings around it too. And just make it my own and just have fun with it. It's not going to be anything, you know, crazy over the top, nothing that I'm going to resell. This is totally my own book. I'm not selling it to anybody, and I want to see how we can do this. So let me show you what I did as my experiment. Now, don't cringe because this was totally an experiment. Can't say that enough. But this is the first side that I did. And this is the back side of the book. Eventually, I will finish this, but this is where I initially started experimenting. And these are micas. That light green, this purpley color, and this red are all micas. This one here is a color shifting mica powder, or one of those color shifting flakes, chromes, something like that. So what I did to achieve this after the resins and the other experimentations failed me is I took some of my trusty Aleene's Tack It over and over and brushed a little bit on here. And then using my fingers, I put the mica powder on. And I was really not convinced that that would stay on the book and be a permanent fixture, obviously. So I put it on, I liked the way it looked, and then I thought, well, what can I do to keep that on there? Now, I don't have any of the spray sealants on hand, and frankly, I didn't want to go and buy any just for this little bit of an experimentation. Someday I will, but I didn't for this. So what I did is I ended up taking one coat, a very thin layer of Mod Podge, and putting it over the entire surface. So this is Tack It, Let It Dry, mica powders, or these chrome type powders, the chameleon color shifting ones, or whatever you want that's in this kind of powdery vicinity. Put it on. After I was done, I sealed it all in with the Mod Podge. And believe it or not, I have rubbed my hand over this over and over again, and nothing comes off on it. I was very, very, very happy with my final result here. I can pick at it. These ones down here will scratch a little bit. This probably will too if I really dug at it a lot, because I've only got one very thin layer of Mod Podge. This was simply a test to see, does it work and will it come off on my hands if I rub it? So then the next step would be to take one of these stamps and put it down on the book. Now, because I have this already kind of prepped, I think I might actually experiment right now on camera with you guys and see whether or not I can stamp directly on here and make an image that you can actually see. So this is Ranger Distress Oxide Black Soot ink, and I'm just really inking this up really, 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 really well so that I know that it's going to come off. And again, I did not do the best job inking there. I don't really care for this part of it. I'm just testing it out to see if it actually will work. And I have the sticky part of the stamp, the clear stamp, on an acrylic base, acrylic square block, so that I can see where I'm putting it and I know that it's going where I want it to. These things are great. Let me tell you, when I first started stamping 1,000 years ago, all we had was those wooden block stamps and you couldn't tell where you were putting anything. So I really enjoy these a lot. So let's see how this came out. All right, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm not terribly upset by that. I could work with it. I'm not totally thrilled with all of the area, the way that it picked up the ink, and the ink is still really wet in spots, which is fine because it'll dry. But here, let me bring it up to the camera a little bit so you can see it. So he doesn't look too terribly bad. I could work with that. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think I would rather do something like this, because my next thought was that I was going to take my paper here and stamp directly on here, and then fussy cut it out and put it on the paper and Mod Podge over it. And if I was going to do that, then I would want to color these guys in. And I don't really know that I want to do that. I think what I'd like to do is to get some kind of cool shading with the mica powders in here to stamp him directly on top of. My fear is that something will go horribly wrong and I won't be able to get the image to come out clearly. If that were to happen, and it very likely will, then I think what I would end up doing is taking my my paper and probably just going right over the top of the image with the cutout stamped paper. So right now I'm just cleaning. I sprayed a little bit of alcohol ink on my stamp and I'm just cleaning it off so there's no residue from the inking of it. And I'm sorry if I'm sniffling in your ear suddenly for no reason whatsoever. My nose decided it wanted to run as soon as I get on camera. That seems to be the way of it. So anyway, all right, he's clean enough for right now. So now I'm going to think for a second on what I want to do. Now, I guess my next thought is, because he is still a little bit wet, if he doesn't come out the way I like, could I clean him off and try again? So let's see. I'm sure because it's just ink that shouldn't be a problem. But again, I don't want to make an assumption. I already lost my paper that I was cleaning up with. But it does. And it does not look like it's taking... Oh, yes, it is. There we go. Yeah, by putting the alcohol directly on there. Yep. It left a big old mess. Can you see that? Smudged it right up. Not surprised at all. It actually took the Mod Podge off. I wasn't sure what it would do to it. So now I have a sticky mess there where it used to be somewhat nice. So don't clean with alcohol. Note to self. All right, well, let's get into it and see how this turns out and where we want to go from here, and keep our fingers crossed that everything works well. So the first thing that we need to do, oh my goodness, excuse me. I do not like doing that on camera, I'm sorry. First thing we want to do is put some of the tacket on here. And whereas I was very, very, like, non-caring when I put it on the other side because I didn't really know what it was going to do, I want to get this coat really, really, really on every corner and every bit of the surface. And this is a very old makeup brush that I don't use anymore. So I'm just going to use that to get this tacket everywhere I want it to go. Oh, and Lucinda Swirl, if you ever see any of my videos, and if you haven't seen her videos, I highly recommend it. She does tumblers for the most part, although she does do some other things on occasion. She was the one that kind of turned me on to these brushes, and although they do still leave streaks, they're so much better than most of the other brushes that I have used. So, wow, what a difference. All right, well, I have this on. I'm going to go around on the side here and on the top and bottom and the other side over here and just clean up any residue that I have. I'm going to put this in some water to clean it, and I will be back in just a moment. Oops. Oh my goodness. There I go, shaking everything again. All right. So here is the book cover. It's totally dry. Very tacky. So now we're going to do some micas, mica powders. So I have my trusty rag at the ready, and I've picked out some colors, and I'm doing this on some white paper in case I make a bigger mess than I intend to. At least it won't go on my surface paper and transfer onto the book some other way. Once I remove the white paper, we should be golden, hopefully. All right, so this one, these are my Rolio mica powders. Oops, I didn't turn my other light on. Sorry, guys. Hold on. I was wondering why it looks so dark. All right. These are my Rolio mica powders. I have a video on unboxing these. If I remember, I'll put a link down in the description so you can see it. This one here is called Burgundy. And it's burgundy, and yes, it does look red, but it has that kind of coppery undertone to it that I was looking for. This one is called Tiger Orange. Then I have a blue, which is called Maya Blue. And I have a green, which is called Parakeet Green. I just kind of chose these colors at random. These two I thought looked really nice together, and I think they'll be a good stand-in for the color of the cat that we're going to do. So I'm going to do these colors primarily in the middle. It'll be mostly this orange, I think, with hints of this around the outside of where I think the image will sit. And then the rest of it I will do in the blues and the greens, just to give it some color pop and some interest, I guess. So I guess without any further delay, we'll go ahead and get started. Open this up. And you want to be careful with these, and the reason I say you want to be careful is you don't want to just pour them onto your cover because it'll be way too much. So I'm going to start off with just a little bit on the tip of my finger and just put it on the book where I think I'm going to want it. And I'm not worried about fingerprints because in a minute we will go through and kind of burnish this in. But right now I'm just doing a very small section so everything doesn't get out of control. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to stamp anything. I'm just going to see approximately where my stamp is going to sit. And that's right about where I would want it. So I'm going to do just a little bit more around the outside edges here. And if you find you're not picking up enough powder with your fingertip, you can always use a brush or, a little scoop or something. That would work probably just fine as well. So I'm going to put the orange away for a second. And on the black background, I wasn't really counting on that. It's looking a little bit more yellow than orange. But honestly, I don't really mind it. And since, like I said, it's my book, I don't really care because it's not going anywhere. I can do with it what I like. So now I'm putting a little bit of the burgundy around the outside. Do a little blending. And the nice thing about this technique is if you really don't like the way that something looks, or if it's not the color that you were hoping it was going to be, then you can always go back and, I would imagine, put some more of the tacket on and continue building up if you chose to. I mean, maybe on the outside, on the corners or something, we'll even try that and see how it looks. Just so that you guys have a reference point, right? All right. So this is going to take quite a while. I'm going to shut up now and just kind of finish this out, and this will be on fast mode. Okay guys, so we're back. So here's the completed cover with all the Mod Podge. I always want to say Mod Podge, and I know that's wrong. With the Mod Podge on it. So it is ready to go. I know it looks a little funky now, and it may still look funky. And if it does, I don't care, because it's mine. All right. So now that we've got this all ready, the cover is completely dry. It's not sticky. It's good. There's nothing coming off on my hands. We're all good. So I have my stamp that I decided that I wanted to use. And we're going to go ahead and just bite the bullet and stamp on here and see what happens. So move this over a little bit. So again, Distress Oxide, ink pad. I'm inking up my little cat here, but I'm trying not to overdo it because I still want the definition to be there. Just making sure I'm getting all the little lines and getting his mouth and all of that good stuff. Got a little piece of cardstock here. I just want to test it out really quickly and see how it's looking. I just want to make sure that he is stamping okay and that I can see all the detail and make sure that if there are lines that I'm not quite getting to come across, that they do. Again, I don't want too much, but at the same time, I don't want too little. And there's like one side of his mouth that just doesn't want to come out in the design. So I guess we're going to just bite it here and hope for the best. All right, so like I said, we want to have the orange in. I just breathed on it a little bit to re-moisten the ink. So we want the orange and stuff in the middle of his belly. So here we go. Fingers crossed. I figured if worse comes to worse, I can always outline it with a black Sharpie or something if I need to, just to make it a little bit more detailed. But, all right, not too bad. And if you're wondering why he's got a line going across his eyes, because he does in the thing here too. It's because he kind of looks a little bit crazy. I'm a little bit sad that the side over here didn't come out quite as well as I would have hoped for it to. But again, I think that we will do some outlining of it. And I know I had a black Sharpie here somewhere, but of course, the minute that I need it or want to use it where I thought it is, it isn't. So give me a second. Yeah, it definitely disappeared on me, so I'll have to go hunt for it. But for the most part, it looks okay. I'm going to give it a minute here. Let it kind of dry off before I touch that part of it. So I don't want to, I don't want my stamp to, or I don't want the ink that's on my book. I can't talk and do two things, or can't talk and do something at the same time if you haven't noticed. I don't want the ink to smear, so I don't want to touch it. And there goes my light. It needs to be charged. So I think before I go on to the next step, I'm going to charge my light real quickly, and then I will come back. So I'll be back in just a blink of an eye for you. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back. So while I was charging my light, I decided to go ahead and use my Sharpie to outline my little cat here. Hopefully you can see that okay. I know there's a little bit of glare on there, but the Sharpie didn't do too bad. Again, I would have liked it much better if the ink would have worked better, and I think it would have, except if you look at the original image here, the lines on the stamp are very, very thin. And of course, it's meant to be stamped on paper. So the fact that I had to outline it a little bit with Sharpie is no big deal. And if you had a stamp that was a little chunkier, or if you were doing something completely different than stamps, it would work just fine. But overall, I'm not disappointed with the image. Again, I can't say it enough. Just practicing, playing around, seeing what works, what doesn't work. So we're going to move on. And I have a little saying here that I'm going to stamp on there. And the saying says, "At times, I'm grateful that thoughts don't actually appear in bubbles over our heads." It's hard to read it when it's just clear like that. So yes, I am very grateful that my thoughts don't show up in thought bubbles over my head, because I'd probably be in trouble sometimes. Anyway, let's move on here and just loading that up and getting it as dark as I can without making it too much so. And if it's a little bit overdone, and yes, I'm meaning to put this at an angle, trying not to smear it when I put it on there. Oh, all right, so that didn't turn out too bad. A tiny little smudge with the "at times," and I felt it when I laid the stamp down, so I'm not terribly disappointed in that. Again, if I'd had a finer Sharpie, my little drawing here would have turned out better. And I still may go over it with the Sharpie later on and just make it a little bit cleaner, but it is what it is. So I'm going to take that off, that saying off, and put it okay, I'm sorry about that. My phone decided it wanted to die right in the middle of everything. So I did go and stamp this cat onto my surface here, and that was when my phone died. And one thing I'm starting to notice is the ink runs, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that. You can see it on the tail here really well. I'm not sure on the camera here if you're going to really be able to see it. Let me see if I, no, I'm not going to be able to pick that up. If I turn the light maybe. All right, I don't know if you really can pick that up, but as it's drying, it's starting to run and the lines are starting to bleed together. And I do believe that's just because the surface here is uneven from the Mod Podge. You can see that it's not a totally flat surface. It's not paper, so the ink doesn't have anywhere to soak into, as it would if it was on a piece of paper. Just something to keep in mind. I'm not terribly distraught about that, because it will dry, and it should be fine, hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. That's still that's still coming off, so I'm not really sure how well that's going to work. We may have to let it sit overnight before we do. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Before we do anything further with it. So I think before I do any more stamping on this, well, actually, no, I take that back. I'm just going to continue because it might as well just let it all dry at the same time. So I have a little ball of yarn here. And that will go on. And I have one more little saying here, and it says, "In my defense, I was left unsupervised," which is definitely a quote that I need to use myself. All right, I'm going to put this over here. Alrighty, there's that one. I was going to try to do another cat, but I don't think I'm going to. I have a little fishbone thing here, and I am so sorry, I'm totally out of camera again. I am doing this in a place I don't usually do it, and I keep going out of shot, so my apologies. So there's the little fish. I'm going to put him up here. All right. Okay, I think for right now, that's all I'm going to do. Hi, it's me again. I'm just jumping in the middle of this video to talk through this book in a little bit more detail. I'm not sure where I'm going to put this clip in, so I apologize if it kind of just pops in the middle someplace, but I will eventually show you this completed cover, or have already shown it to you. And I will try to put it in after I talk about how the ink starts to look like it's running a little bit, because it does. It doesn't run terribly, and like I said, it's not because of anything that I did. It's not because of the technique. It's just the fact that the Mod Podge is a slippery, resilient, glossy surface. There's no place for the ink to absorb into, and I didn't really give that consideration, because when I stamped on it, I was like, hey, yeah, that's great. This is stamped on. I'm all good. You can see the image. Cool. Now the Sharpie worked out fine. I don't have any issues with the Sharpie that I kind of used to trace over the design. That's perfectly fine. The rest of this, after 12 hours, was still wet. So I came in with just a paper towel that's totally dry. It's got nothing on it. And I wiped the whole thing, and probably 70% of the ink came off. So you can see, maybe you can, maybe you can't in this light, but yeah, a lot of the ink totally came off as I was cleaning it. The good thing was I didn't spray anything on here. I didn't use any alcohol. I didn't use anything on the paper towel. Totally dry. Everything was dry. So when I wiped it, it did smudge all over it, but because it is glossy and it was protected and sealed, it just continued to come off. So I just kept wiping it until all of the kind of smeared ink was gone, and I was left with this. So the images are still here. They're on there. They're dry. They're not coming off anymore. So everything there is golden. The only problem is that they're very faded. Now, I was tossing up some ideas. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. I may just wait, and that's probably what I'm going to do, is just wait and get a fine-tipped Sharpie and just draw these in. So the final image that you see, even though it's with the alcohol ink, it will be how the book finally ends up, because I'm just going to get a Sharpie and just draw these in and call it a day, because I really like the cover. I was actually going to just cover the whole thing again with another layer of Aleene's Tack It Over and Over, and then just start all over again. And I thought, no, I really like the cover. I really liked how this turned out. And if nothing else, this just gave me a guide. So I just wanted to make sure I jumped on here and let you guys know that although it's possible to do the ink stamping on it, it's not going to come out the way that you expect. So you're probably better off taking a different route, just leaving the cover as is, or doing the pressed flowers and Mod Podging over that, whatever it is that you want to do, but you're more likely to get a better result with something like that. And I think as time goes on, I'm going to try to do something like that. I was actually going to try to add pressed flowers to here. And then I thought that's just going to ruin the vibe of this book. Like, we've got all these cute cat sayings and everything going on here, so I don't want to do that. But like I said, just a quick blurb to let you know that it will work if you're willing to do some kind of drawing over it with a Sharpie. I wished before I had drawn him that I had done that, but that's fine. Like I said, I don't care. It's not the end of the world. This is more just to see, does this work? And although the entire technique does work, even the stamping you are going to have to wipe off because the ink will not totally dry. It could have to do with the weather here too. It's very humid, but the ink won't dry fully. It'll still be tacky even 12 hours later. So I just wiped it all down, got rid of the excess ink, and I still have the images here, which is a nice thing because then at least I can trace them and I can refer back to an image that I've printed on paper to make sure that I get the finer details. So anyway, I'll stop talking, back to the original video. And the one thing I was thinking I might want to do is I might want to seal this. And I don't think I want to seal it with the Mod Podge, because if I do, because Mod Podge is water-based, it will most likely make the ink reactivate and run. I don't know that 100% for sure, but I can guesstimate that that's probably what would happen. So probably once this dries, I'm going to be done with it. I may want to do some embellishments maybe along the edge here. Don't really know yet what, if anything, I want to do, but that's kind of where my thought process is sitting right now. So yeah, I think we're pretty much done with this. Just a quick video just to give you an idea of something different you could do on a cover of a book. And I think the next time I try to do something like this, I definitely like the background. I love the mica powders. I love how shimmery they are. You could do just this coat of mica powders and then put a Mod Podge layer over the top of it and call it a day and just leave it like that, and it would be totally lovely. Or, like I said, you could put the pressed flowers on and then cover it with Mod Podge. I think that would be gorgeous. So that might be something I try next. But let me know what you think down in the comments, if this is something that you'd ever want to give a try. I enjoyed it. I think it's something that I would definitely try to do it again on another book. If I do anything more to this, if you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram link is in my YouTube page. If I do anything more to it, I'll put it on Instagram. But I think for now, this kind of does it. I really am glad that you kind of joined me here to go through this little bit of an experiment. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was something that you found at least entertaining, if nothing else, and maybe gives you some thoughts and spurs some creativity for you. If you're new here, thank you for joining. If you're an old subscriber, welcome back. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up if you feel like it deserves it. Leave me a comment about something that you would have done differently or something that you'd like to see me try. I'd be happy to give it a go. Otherwise, subscribe if you're not subscribed. It'll help my channel out tremendously. I appreciate you all for kind of watching this and going along for the ride, and I hope you all have a great day, evening, wherever you are. Take care, and I will see you later. Bye.